Good morning. I'm joined today by the Dragonfly DB CEO, Oded Poncz. Oded, thank you for joining me. You're the co-founder, you're the CEO. Give me a high level. What is Dragonfly?
Well, Dragonfly is an in-memory data store, the most performant one in the world.
This is one of those areas where a lot of people make claims about databases, and some of them are even true. You know, for the whole Star Wars thing, from a certain point of view. So to be direct, I've spent years now watching companies just sort of throw money at usually Redis when it comes to scaling problems. But you and your co-founder, Roman, decided to we're not going to just rebadge Redis. We're going to rebuild the engine instead back in your Google days. What was your, that's it, I'm tired of this shit moment?
We actually didn't use Redis at Google. It was only after that we ran into it at a company we started called Ubimo. And at Ubimo, we had a very high workload of Redis. But honestly, it was clunky and felt fragile. We were constantly babysitting it, monitoring latencies like hawks, doing everything possible to protect it. So we spent years dancing around the Redis limitations. Really smart engineers were burning weeks trying to shave off latencies and trying to prevent cascading failures. And the root issue was always the same. Redis is single-threaded and cannot scale to support the workloads that we needed. Eventually, Roman left Ubimo and became the principal engineer of the Elasticache team at AWS. And there, same Redis, same single-threaded, same scaling issues. That's where we looked at each other and said, this is nuts. There's no other alternative to that. Let's stop hacking around the Redis engine. Let's just build one from scratch. This is where we started Dragonfly.
That sounds like, to be direct, a story that a lot of people have told from a few different perspectives. One, yes, you have the scars of Redis upon you. Having run that in anger, which is what I call production myself, it absolutely resonates. But in my experience, you know what? We're going to build our own database from scratch is sort of the rallying cry for hold my beer and watch this, because a lot of folks have tried this. Most of them fail. You folks have done something a little bit different and actually were able to pull it off. What do you think it is that made a difference for you to make that work in this particular case?
The thing is that we identified that Redis is single-threaded, and that's the core problem of the entire industry. Today, modern hardware have tons of cores and hundreds of gigabytes of memory. So with Redis, with single thread, if you take a bigger instance, basically you're still utilizing only a single core. If you're taking a bigger instance, basically you're wasting your money. The only way for you to scale is to take many small instances, and then you're wasting your time. So companies that we see are usually spending both their money and their time on provisioning Redis. Dragonfly is multi-threaded share-nothing architecture. We use thread per core architecture with C++ fibers. So we share the memory between the cores, so every core has a different segment of the key space. In simple word, if you take bigger instances, you get better performance. It's almost linear with the number of CPUs that you're adding to the machine. So every Dragonfly shard has the power of a full Redis cluster. That's how you get 25 times better performance comparing to Redis on a single instance. Of course, you can say that Redis can also scale horizontally to use many cores, but so can Dragonfly Swarm. And every shard of it is still 25 times more performant than the Redis shard.
So generally speaking, you can take a whole bunch of different approaches to these things. In this particular case, you've convinced some serious database folks in the form of investors to so far put $21 million into you folks. That isn't just, okay, this is a fun idea, we're going to throw it at the wall and see what sticks. We think that Redis is actually vulnerable kind of money. What convinced them that this wasn't just another try-hard database wannabe?
Basically, we based our case on 3 facts. First, the problem is real and massive. So there's no other alternative to Redis in the market. And Redis is used everywhere. It's one of the most widely used databases on the planet. And we're replacing it with something that's 25 times better, 25 times more performant, operationally simpler, and much more cost effective. The second thing is that the technology is real and defensible. So the investors came to invest in Dragonfly only after we already released Dragonfly community version, and we had tons of stars, tons of production adoption. So basically it was a clear indication from the community that they are looking for an alternative and they are looking for modern replacement. And the third thing is that we're the right team for that. So I've built and sold 2 companies. Roman is one of those rare Google engineers that cannot build something small. His first love in life was a hash table. And at AWS, he was the principal engineer. So he knows a few things about Redis. Also, we have great investors, as you said. So Satish is very experienced in the field. He's the first investor, one of the first investors in Snowflake, CockroachDB. So he really has an eye for disruptive technology. I guess that in short, it would be the market is huge, the pain is clear, the tech is ready, and the team is right.
Going back to a little bit about what you said earlier, to technical deep dive for a minute here. It's like the old Guns N' Roses song, Take Me Down to Concurrency City, where the grass green girls are pretty, and yes. Multi-threading is one of those concurrency nightmare areas. How do you avoid that while also staying Redis compatible?
Well, you're absolutely right. Like multi-threading is not like a magic trick that you can pull off easily.
I mean, you can do multi-threading super well, but then you wind up with transactions out of order. You wind up with these massive issues of race conditions everywhere, Heisenbugs you can't run down. As you can tell, I'm probably a terrible programmer just based upon the conversation here. How do you dodge the bullet?
So the challenge here is to reduce the need for a shared state as much as possible and eliminate locks as much as possible. Otherwise, the CPU will be spending more time waiting other than doing stuff. So in Dragonfly, in order to avoid contention as much as possible, we shard the memory space, basically. Each thread owns a different portion of the key space. So no 2 threads are accessing the same key. This eliminates like 99% of the concurrencies issues because there is no shared state. Inside each thread, we're running a lightweight fibers. So you get a massive concurrency without blocking and without heavyweight thread coordination. And when coordination is needed, for example, in multi-key operations, then we only use a very lightweight lock mechanism to lock only the specific keys that are involved in the actual transaction. It sounds like simple, but it took us a long time to get this right.
One of the challenges that I've seen with this is you mentioned, for example, on your website that you're saving roughly 30% in memory, and which sounds like it's marketing until someone has to start dealing with, the AWS bill and they realize, oh, right, memory actually matters. Where does that third in memory drop come from? And I gotta ask, what's the catch?
So, yeah, we are an in-memory data store, so memory do count. If you have lower memory, you pay less. That's an easy math. We have 3 main innovations here. The first one is the main key table that's more optimized. So for every key and value, we save approximately 30 bytes per key. Also, if the value is very small, we store it inside the key table. And this saves like an additional allocation, an additional reference. The second thing that we do is that our underlying data structure are optimized for memory overhead. So they take less memory, for example, for sorted sets and things like that. But also it's not only about memory, they are also CPU optimized and CPU cache friendly. So this improves both memory and speed. And the third thing that we do is on-the-fly compression. So for databases that we have enough CPU available for us, we can apply real-time compression and decompression on the values, which can be very effective. And this is something that only us can do in the market because we are multi-threaded. So as you can see, it's all engineering and algorithmic work. There's no catch to that. Of course, if you have only a few keys and like you store like gigantic videos or zip files, we will not save you much. But on average, what I would expect is to see at least 30% less memory. So you're getting like, you simply get more keys per gigabyte.
Let me push back on you a little bit here. Honesty is one of those valuable things here. It's how I distinguish between zealots and people who are onto something here. What workloads are there that make Redis look better than Dragonfly? Everything has caveats. Every database out there has scenarios where it loses. Where is Dragonfly weak?
So Redis was designed when standard hardware had like a single core. Dragonfly is designed for modern hardware with multiple cores. So if your workloads fits comfortably on a single instance with a single core, you're probably better off with Redis. Companies that has huge workloads must run on Dragonfly. But for companies with a few gigabytes of memory and relatively low throughput, they better off scaling before they come to Dragonfly.
So let's dive in a little bit on the Redis compatibility side of it. The migration is always challenging. Drop-in replacements get advertised a lot, and that, in my experience, does not work super well here. The one I would accept it for, at least for the time being, is Valkey, which is effectively direct compatible with Redis because it's the same code base after Redis did a whole rug pull thing to its community and then failed at it. What percentage of Redis apps can actually migrate to Dragonfly without the drama that comes attendant with it?
Basically, Dragonfly is a new in-memory data engine. But at the end of the day, it has the same API, same wire protocol, same client libraries as Redis and Valkey. You do not need to change anything within your application code to migrate. And we design it so the migration will be boring in 99% of the use cases. It's more of an upgrade rather than a migration. We've seen teams that migrate to Dragonfly in a few minutes. That said, of course, I always advise people to do a POC with us because every migration carries out some risk to the customer's environment. So we do not take it lightly. There are simple use cases like caching scenarios where only a few hours of a POC is enough. And there are more complex scenarios like where heavy Lua scripting is involved or where big migration needs to be done, like data migrations. So in those cases, for enterprise customers, we provide a full POC support, including like dedicated Slack channels to assist throughout the process. So far, when people do a POC with us, we have seen like 0 issues in cutover.
You mentioned that Dragonfly is an in-memory database a few times. Do you offer a disk persistence mode at this point, or is that out of scope for what you've built?
Well, actually, it's coming soon enough. It's already available in the community, and soon enough, it's coming to the cloud.
I remember a long time ago, I was using Redis where we enabled disk persistence mode on EC2. And that was the day that we discovered a fun Zen regression around fork. Why did everything suddenly take 20 times longer as soon as we enabled that? And that was a bit exciting because on its face, there was no reason for that to happen. But it absolutely just shredded performance for the application and caused a significant outage at the time. It's one of those things you learn by getting it wrong, I suppose. Is that something that you folks have seen? Is that why you're taking a more measured approach to rolling that out? Or is it just not something you see significant demand for in your customer base at the moment? Actually,
we choose, as many things that we're doing, we choose a completely different architecture here. And I think that you'll be surprised, everyone will be surprised from the performance that they are getting from Dragonfly. And I don't want to do premature marketing here, but with our approach, we are hiding all the rights behind the scenes. If we get good caching ratios to the things, so you will not see any latency degradation. I really hope to see a lot of workloads on that and to release benchmark of real real customers that are trying that, and this is why it's taking longer for us to get this out of the door. But it's already available in the community for more than a year.
So, well, let's double click on that for a second. There are a few Redis commands that you're missing at the moment, which I imagine is an intentional choice. Which ones tend to bite people when they run into it unexpectedly in production?
So, yeah, Dragonfly supports like 99% of the use cases, of the Redis use cases. Like the API is like almost complete. But there are some commands that no one uses. For example, geo commands. So in those use cases, like geo commands are not fully baked into Dragonfly yet. And as the gods of production are always likes to like align the odds. So 2 weeks ago, one of our customers pushed a version to production with geo commands that we do not support. And he had like an incident for like 10 or 20 minutes. But those cases are extremely rare and can be avoided easily with a simple test. Usually it's boring, and this is exactly how we like it.
If databases are exciting, you're doing something wrong has always been my approach to things. Of course, I try and make them exciting by inappropriately using things as databases that were never designed to be that way, like DNS. But I digress. I do want to talk a little bit about the business landscape and competitive reality. Redis Incorporated, not Redis Labs anymore. They changed that while trying and failing a rug pull. They can't be thrilled about you folks existing. Are they adapting, or are they trying the whole, oh, we're the big folks, we're going to ignore the startup approach? Because that always ends well.
If you consider a CISO desist letter as ignoring, so yes, they are ignoring us.
Wonderful.
But Dragonfly is such a disruptive technology, changing everything we know about price and performance, that Redis couldn't just ignore the startup playbook on us. Actually, a month after we released Dragonfly Community, Yiftach Schulman released a blog post comparing Redis Enterprise to a 1 month old Dragonfly Community in terms of performance. It looks like some of the recent work, optimization work, was directly followed by things that we have been doing. But you know, it's not only us and Redis out there. Redis are also the proud creators of Valky with their weird licensing strategy, I would call it. So I'm sure that they are not thrilled about us, but overall I would say that we've created a more competitive market, and we've pushed in-memory innovation for the benefits of the entire community. And Redis and Valky are currently trying to catch up.
I will say that when Redis tried its nonsense and AWS and some other folks forked it into Valky, that was very much a Cambrian explosion on some level of innovation in the space. The things that Redis had spent years fighting off in the open source version because it would be a competitive threat for them, suddenly there was no barrier there. And Valky suddenly became a lot more capable, to the point where now if I look into how things are working when I do a bit of a deep dive, features are hitting Valky, and then Redis is effectively grabbing from Valky as upstream, which they're obviously not advertising, but you can look at the commits, they're plain as day. Does this sudden acceleration in that space help or hurt you?
First of all, I think that they are both following us. Valky is basically Redis with a new logo. Technically, Valky has the same single-threaded architecture and the same limitations as Redis. So the core problem hasn't changed. Yes, they are adding like additional features or additional commands into that, but at the core, it's still single-threaded. As a member of the ecosystem, I think that the split hurts the community. In the long run, it means that API and client libraries will start to diverge. Customer will have to choose sides. Am I going with Redis? Am I going with Valky? And switching costs will be higher. Of course, Dragonfly will remain the more performant and more efficient alternative to both. but it definitely complicates things, not just for us, I think for the entire community.
You have significantly differentiated benchmarks. You do super well. Let's take it on faith. The technology is actually better. How does it matter? And by what I mean is that convincing enterprises to change databases is like trying to convince people to switch religions. It feels like you're trying to carry water uphill with your hands. How do you handle the nobody gets fired for choosing Redis problem?
Well, true. No one wakes up in the morning and decides, let's switch a core database on a whim.
Let's move databases today. No, they reserve that for let's move to Kubernetes or hey, let's go to the cloud.
Exactly. But people do get fired for slow websites, downtime during peak hours, and clunky user experience. And with Redis and Valky, they are very limited at high scale. And enterprises need reliable and scalable solutions. They hit a wall with Redis. Performance bottlenecks, operational complexities, high cost. And then they start looking for alternatives. And our approach to that is that we would like to make the alternative as simple, as low risk as possible. So really, it's more of an upgrade rather than a migration. Same API drop-in replacement. You don't need to change anything within your application code. You don't even need to get your dev team involved. You run a POC in hours or days with us, not weeks or months. And you can run Dragonfly and Redis side by side, monitor that, and decide when you would like to do the switchover. So I think for modern tech enterprises, this is exactly what they need. It's like same religion, same God, but maybe a more powerful prophet.
That's huge. Normally, the problem with POCs has been that, just refactor your app to use our thing and then see if you like it. Well, you've already put that much work in. You're halfway there already. They're sticky and they tend to be very sunk cost. If it's simply drop in, those POCs become a lot lighter.
Exactly. So we don't expect them to do anything other than just switch the URL to us, and that's it.
So I want to talk a little bit about the reality of the business model here. I've run into too many companies that view open source as a business model, and it very clearly is not. You are not pure open source. You are source available, which, to be honest, is a loaded decision, and everyone's going to have issues with whatever someone decides down this path, particularly, again, in light of Redis's recent frantic walking back of their own license changes, which absolutely smacks of, we tried to rug pull the community, they rallied around Valky, oh no, roll it back, roll it back, roll it back, and now they're scrabbling. How do you build a community without giving everything away in an open source context?
Well, first of all, we do give everything away, but not as an open source, as source available. So I think that open source licenses have become like the enemy of innovation. It's like a double standard game of frenemies. They are kind of saying we will compete against you with your own innovation, and when we feel like it, we will contribute back, but only if we feel like it. So innovating companies needs to protect their creation. Otherwise, as soon as they become even a little bit successful, they will lose their entire business to the hyperscalers. One model that can work is like open core. But I don't understand what's open core for databases companies. So what will I do? I will release Dragonfly with only 5 Redis commands. Who will use the thing? So we have been very clear from day one. We are source available. It's free for everyone to use. It's open for everyone to contribute. You can run it anywhere, do whatever you like with that, as long as you don't compete with us with our own innovation. This allows us to push everything into the community without holding back any feature from the community, which makes Dragonfly community the best in-memory engine out there. And I think the developers gets it and appreciate that, and they are happy to contribute because it gives them much more value out of Dragonfly that they can get from anything else out there.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with source available licenses. I know people think that I have, given the way that I go after companies when they do it. But my problem has always been the rug pull, where they want all the benefits of the community with none of the downsides, and then start effectively doing the bait and switch and suddenly introducing a whole bunch of FUD, which, yeah, I know they're aiming in some cases at the AWS side of the world, but suddenly everyone who's used them has to stop and consider how this works. You've been remarkably consistent on this.
Yeah, exactly. We have been consistent with that from day one. We are building here a business. The innovation is big, and also I think that it gives a lot of confidence because you have a father for this. Okay, my partner. We call him internally the father of dragons.
So I have to ask, at some point here, you are not my first managed database vendor that I've spoken to by a landslide. The managed database space is littered with great ideas and absolutely shitty unit economics where, well, we're losing money on every customer based on the way that AWS charges us in turn, but we're going to make it up in volume, which does not work when the investor money runs out. How do you avoid that fate?
Well, this is a great question. And I think that as if it's not hard enough, cloud providers are the kings of unit economics, and they are trying to make it harder for like independent software vendors, like multi-cloud vendors. So the goal for us is simple, like be as efficient as possible in everything that we do in the company, and try to avoid the cloud pitfalls. So our strategy has like a few layers. First of all, the efficiency of the underlying engine. So a single Dragonfly can replace a Redis cluster. So think about how much hardware you save and how much cost you save on the hardware. And it's less operational overhead and much better economics from the start. The second thing is that we keep our team small and we focus on automation. So everything that we do is automated. If we have more customers, it doesn't mean that we need more bodies here in the company. It's just the control plane takes care of that. Another thing is that we allow for flexible deployment. So customer can use Dragonfly as a service hosted by us, or in a bring your own cloud model to run in the most cost-effective environment for them. And maybe the last thing that we do is we're trying to avoid all the networking cost of the cloud. So the goal here is to eliminate data transfer cost, taking a big part of the cloud tax out of the equation. We do that with VPC peering, zone affinity, read replicas. And I think that the combination of all those together changes the math both for us and for our customers.
I think that there's a bit of a question there, because I would normally push back on this a bit harder, except I've seen you be deployed at one of my clients and the savings were very much real.
Which one was it?
I can't say, unfortunately. That's the problem of working with doing what I do. I can either tell stories or I can name names, and it's never going to be both at the same time unless they tell the story first, which in this particular case, they have not. I do want to ask, though, given that this is 2025 that we are recording this, I do not believe that legally speaking, we are allowed to have any conversation about technology without dropping AI into it. Everyone today is adding AI powered to their database pitch. So what does AI actually mean in the context of in-memory data stores, aside from the obligatory marketing piece?
I don't think that in-memory data stores are AI powered. It's not that an AI model will never store session IDs for you. But in-memory data stores power AI workloads. So first, we released vector search back in 2023. And I think that vector search is a must-have for any modern database because customers do not like to have like many databases. They don't want to have like an in-memory data store and then to have like a vector search data store. So it has to be together. The second thing is that we're seeing huge deployment of feature stores on Dragonfly Cloud. Those workloads feed models in real time where low latency is actually important. In other words, Dragonfly is the infrastructure to build fast and smart application. But I cannot say that it's AI powered. It's not like we are writing Dragonfly with AI.
Well, I want to be clear that by the time your marketing team may absolutely screw me over on this, but as of this recording, the term AI appears nowhere on your website. That, more than anything else in this era, convinced me that you're real and not peddling horseshit.
Thank you. I'll convey the message.
Yeah, and later today, I'm sure they're going to roll out the new Dragonfly, the best for AI everywhere. Like they get paid every time they mention the term. Back to economics, though, getting paid. It's important. In this economy, I don't think that I have, honestly, now that money means something, I don't think I've ever met a CFO that cared more about benchmark numbers than they care about the checks that they're writing to cloud providers. You claim on said website, rather than AI, you mention 80% cost reductions. I have a bit of data myself, but how real is that? Can you give an example?
First of all, performance is more important than cost. Latency is directly tied to lower revenues. Luckily, with Dragonfly, you get both better performance at lower cost. So we do claim that Dragonfly can save up to 80% of your cost. But of course, not every workload will see an 80% reduction. What I do expect to see is at least 30% cost reduction because of all the memory and hardware saving that we're doing. And I can give real example for that. So, for example, one of our customers was using Elasticache Valky before that. And he had a huge deployment there. With Dragonfly, they have now less than 50% of the hardware that they were using before. So this is a huge cost saving for them. Or another customer was paying more than $5,000 per month to Redis Cloud. With Dragonfly, it's about $1,000. And those examples are real. But the only way for us to tell if it's 30% or 80% or anything between that is if they run a POC with us. And the exciting part is to discover during the POC the saving and the performance gain. Sometimes it's like really surprising.
One of the, I think, I would agree with what you say, where where people care more about performance than they do about the economics. The CFOs, in many cases, they don't care about performance, they care about the bill. But I've walked into environments like that, and it's easy to fix with a simple question. I can drop your AWS bill by 100% if you turn everything off. And surprisingly, no one ever does that. So, saving money is not, in fact, the number one goal. Now we're negotiating what is. And it's nice that in your case, you don't have to do the pick one or the other side of it. On the other side, though, let's talk about challenges. What is the hardest technical problem that you've had to solve while building this that doesn't make it into your marketing?
Well, marketing can focus on like simple messages like cost, performance, scalability. I wish we could talk more about quality of Dragonfly, but it's very hard to explain quality. Take our sophisticated data and control plane we've built around Dragonfly Swarm. It's really a beautiful dance between those two components that create an immense scale, allowing Dragonfly to handle huge workloads gracefully. This is something that our competitors will never be able to do with their single-threaded technology. But it's very hard to explain this quality. So I keep saying a single shard of Dragonfly can perform like a Redis cluster. But it doesn't really capture the insane scale of Dragonfly Swarm. The quality is something that you can actually understand only when you don't have it.
I like the name. I grew up in an area that had a lot of dragonflies, and people don't realize those things can fly 60 miles an hour, and they can move basically like a drone in any direction, backwards even, which is uncommon among insects. It's a perfect name.
Thank you. They are also a predator, and they have the highest catch rate out of all predators.
I grew up in Maine, where mosquitoes are the state bird, an animal that no one has any sympathy for whatsoever. People would release dragonflies explicitly to hunt them down. I thought that was perfect. What are the mosquitoes in your case?
Well, it's obvious.
So I have to ask now, everyone loves superlatives. Like, tell me about the best. No. We're going to go the other direction. I want to hear about the worst customer use case here. What is the most creative way that you've had someone break Dragonfly?
We're a drop-in replacement, so usually we see workloads that are already running on Redis. And honestly, it's very hard to break Dragonfly with those use cases. But I can share maybe two boring examples. So a few months ago, we onboarded a new a big gaming company with a data store that had only a few keys, but every key was like a gigantic hash table with many gigabytes of memory each. Replicating each hash map requires us to allocate gigabytes of memory. So it was causing out-of-memory exceptions or out-of-memory crashes on the master. By the way, the same thing happens on Redis and Valky. So our team decided to solve this problem once and for all and extended the replication mechanism to support streaming of huge values. And since then, we haven't seen the problem. Another example that we have is an edtech company that's using Dragonfly on a public network with TLS. And they implemented a connection strategy that's based on latency. So every time they have higher latency, they spin off more front ends that are creating more connections to Dragonfly. And since TLS is heavy on CPU, so latency goes up. And then they create more connections, which cause latency to go up. And there's a vicious cycle like that creates like a perfect storm of connections. So a few weeks ago, they created this perfect storm with more than 10,000 connections per second, which basically killed the CPU on 100% on the data store. So the team decided to have a rate limit to their new connections, and this problem was eliminated. We use those issues in order to perfect our infrastructure, so we continue to be the most boring infrastructure you would ever use.
There's something to be said for that particular superlative. What advice do you have for infrastructure founders? Competing with entrenched database vendors, stupidity or brilliance?
You have to be brilliant in order to create the technology, and you have to be stupid in order to start a company. Luckily, between me and my partner, we have both covered.
I like that. Okay, last question for you. It is 2025. Let's look forward. We're having this conversation in 12 months, 2026. Where will Dragonfly DB be in 12 months with the caveat, no marketing speak?
We are going to disrupt the market again with SSD and bring your own cloud.
I like that. We will have that conversation in 1 year. Oded, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Corey, it was a pleasure.